Elle, let's have you weigh in, just how you're feeling about the times we're in within this context of the federal election.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, obviously we're at a time with very serious issues. We all know that economic issues like the cost of food, the cost of housing, the inability to find housing. At the same time, I feel from my point of view, it feels like politics is performed like the political theater is increasingly out of step with how people actually experience politics. I don't think I myself have ever been as alienated from an election campaign um, as I am on this one. Like in some ways, I feel like I couldn't care less because not one of these parties is stepping forward, for example, to speak out for Palestinian life. How are we 18 months into a genocide and it's still controversial if Carney is asked, to obey international law, something as simple as that. And that becomes discourse in our media around, oh no, did he say it was genocide? Oh no. So when we're still there, I find it increasingly difficult to really engage with what is really just a form of political performance, right? So, what Desmond Cole always calls the horse race, like there's all this media that's generated this sort of false, like, oh, now this person's ahead in the polls. Oh, now we got to put this story about the false buttons, because maybe the liberals are getting too far ahead in the polls. So now we need to create a debate so that it's exciting. And it's like this, symbiotic cycle of the news and politics that just generates this discourse that is more or less meaningless. We're supposed to celebrate Carney, who's moving ever further to the right, as usual, the same dynamic we've seen in the States, where we're supposed to be so scared of the conservative slash Republican boogeyman that we cede all progressive ground and the idea that like this is the responsible and mature and adult thing to do, so therefore we shouldn't talk about Palestine, or we shouldn't talk about economic justice, or race is off the table now. We're definitely not talking about racial justice anymore. Indigenous, like where we've really just ceded all that progressive ground because now we're just scared of Polyev. And I agree, I am scared of Polyev as well. But when the liberals are picking up conservative talking points around crime, around bail, around parole, in order to outflank the conservatives, then what are we left with? And this is dynamic we've seen in the US that has led us to where we are. So I don't think we can ignore the fact that a big part of the position that we're in right now is because of our complacency on Palestine. When we were willing to accept, students being beaten down by police for speaking up about Palestine and genocide, when we were willing to accept from our politicians complete inaction, as we continue to be willing to have our countries disrespect and violate international law, send weapons, and can't even get a position on that. Now we see what's happening in the States. Of course, it's inevitably coming to everyone. It'll be the same for us. So I find it, I suppose, just very difficult to
Hmm.
uh, feel like this election is going to be meaningful for any of the issues that actually
Okay.
matter to me.